to both channels.
Let's do it.
All right. Yeah, I think this will be the last one.
We don't trust our audience enough to be hanging out with us on the correct channel.
Eric, you know they're going to hear all
they
this.
can hear us.
This is the behind the scenes.
Okay, guys, shut up. So pro.
GoPro, that's why I own so many.
Welcome back to another episode of the Alternative Cycling Network, where we give you unfiltered and unsponsored news. We got Michael from Locked In and Eric Spinney from Spin That. And yeah, the intro worked finally.
Yeah, stop talking during the intro.
I've spent so much money to be able to run a countdown timer. I'm so glad it finally worked.
It was a good $7,000 investment. We just got to get out of that hole now.
Right. So if you haven't already, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.
Very helpful.
Yeah. Right. So today, just as we expected, the industry had some new drops this week, just so we could talk about them on the show. And in some ways, they're very similar. Both of them are going to be gravel bikes, but also in a huge way, actually pretty different. But before we jump into the topic for today, let's do channel updates. What's been going on with your channels, guys?
So for me, I've been posting different stuff. So the last video I posted was about video equipment. So I have one other follow-up video of that, of just like some recommendations for anybody who's looking to do content creation. That'll be my next video I post, as far as kind of the different pros and cons to different setups that I've tried over the years. So I have a video on what I use currently, the bags I use to carry them, and then the next follow-up is going to be just like some recommendations on, you can start here. Here's some different price points, pros and cons, if you want to get into what we all do.
Living the dream. It's called living the dream.
Living the dream. I should hashtag that on there. Yeah, living the dream. Yeah,
it's a dream.
Speaking of video equipment, man, your video looks baller today. Like what's going on there?
I mean, you can think like 18 Amazon orders later that I figured it out. So now it's way more complicated. And I look like marginally better. Like it's like
I would say it's more than marginal. It's very noticeable.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The background's bleriy. That's pro. That's
pro.
Yeah,
hey, that's all it is. If I could get closer to the camera, and they would be more blurred, that would look even better. Yeah.
And Eric, you've got a nice comfy chair.
Yeah, I've sequestered to the basement. Angela's working a double shift tonight, so I didn't want the dog to be alone all day, so I wanted to hang out with him. So we're in the bike corner where stuff has kind of learned to migrate.
So what's been going on your channel?
I had to look. I had to see. But I don't know what dates. I think I only posted twice this week. I did like a Q&A, and then actually threw a set of tires that Mike sent for the Ronster Cross on as like a sketchy tubeless setup. It's like not really a sketchy setup. It was like two very right things with just like terrible tape.
Like just the right amount.
Yeah, like and tubeless valves I cut out of like old tubes just to.
At the end of this, just before we get going, have you ridden them a little bit?
I have not ridden them yet.
Okay, well then never mind. All
That's the worst part of Sticker Tuesday.
Next week, people. Next week.
I shoot those like Monday night, and like
at like 11.
Yeah, I'll be like, okay, I'll get home from work and it'll be like 5 o'clock. And I'm like, I'm just changing tires and shooting a video. I should be done in like 6 minutes.
It always takes way longer than you think.
Oh my God, it's forever.
Yeah.
And like I get, sometimes my videos will end with just like like I'll just be done. And people are like, that's so funny. And I'm like, no, that's me mad. Like
that's me at 3 in the morning, be like, this should have taken 20 minutes, taken 4.5 hours.
Yeah. I'm like, I gotta get up at 5 and edit this stupid thing so I can freaking post it on a day that I said I would.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what's going on my channel, and
Cool. So on PLP, I dropped the video review for the Ritchie Outback, which has a very similar name but completely different from the previous version. And it's pretty sweet. I'm usually not
that thing looks rad.
not a long chainstay kind of person, but with that steel, it was super cool. So really stoked on it.
Like I watched that and I couldn't get over the look of it. Like it's just kind of not very Ritchie-esque kind of for what those bikes have always kind of looked like. I think I always maybe it's like that I like the Swiss Cross so much. Right. And like I need to get away from that. But like looking at that longer chainstay, I was like, man, it's so bizarre looking.
You know what? I think and this is my opinion, but I think Russ, if you would have had like the 2.1s or whatever they spec'd on like their press bike on there, probably would have looked more filled out.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. So it's, so I think that's where I understand that the stretch out look is because of the gaps. So I think if it would have been filled out a little bit more,
yeah, certainly.
It would have looked a little more natural, still more like Monster Cross beefy, but I think it would have looked more tucked, even though it's not. So yeah, no, but I think it's cool that the fact they actually drastically changed that much and kept the same nameplate is cool, because that's a very big departure year to year.
I wish more companies would keep their name. I've been wanting to make a video about stuff like this forever. Like bike companies every 3 years, they're like, boom, new bike name, new bike. Every so often I'm like, it'd be cool if Trek was still just numbering all their bikes.
Like running shoes. Like I know that you run, like the Pegasus is on like what? Pegasus like 47, the Nike. No, you don't.
I run. That is it. I don't know anything about it.
Well, if you're a running shoe nerd, right. but running shoe brands, I feel like tend to do a better job at keeping the same name and just having different number of iterations. And it brings kind of familiarity.
It's cool, right? Like it's like, I look at the car world and like motorbikes and stuff. Yeah. Like they're like, this is how this the heritage of this bike started, and here it is. Like the LA is a good example of that. Like that thing, not to be another Specialized fanboy moment, but at least they keep some names around, right? They're guilty.
Right, like the new Rock Hopper looks great.
Right. So
it looks killer. Like I'm like, all right.
What a familiar name. It's cool.
I feel like they should come out with the Rock Combo again.
I've got one here.
Do you really?
No, this is just my.
So he's prototyping. He's actually prototyping for Specialized Canada. I don't know if anybody know that. This is first. This is an exclusive on the live stream.
Don't talk about it very often, but this is what we're up against.
Yeah.
Okay. So today, I think before we jump into the content real quick, this is probably going to be, or this is going to be the last dual live stream from Path Less Pedaled and Alternative Cycling Network. So if you like this show in particular, be sure to subscribe to the ACN channel. The link is in the description below. I know some people have a problem finding it in search. So check out the link in the description. I think I might have put in Alternative Cycling Network with no spaces. That might be the issue. So I'm going to go back and change that.
And also we're new, so it's going to be very low on the algorithm as far as like what's going to pop up.
Yeah, anything that says Cycling Network is going to be somehow taken over by this other conglomerate.
Yeah, there's this other channel that totally has a very similar name, and I'm like,
they're very new. They have like, the guys like, I think they've ridden bikes before, but I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I
can understand the brand confusion when when other people enter your space. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. So today we're going to talk about two bikes, the Slate and the Explorer Race Max. I'm going to pull it up on my screen. Let's talk about the Slate first. So this is a pretty interesting bike insofar as is this the first like geared bike from Slate? Because they're typically known for fixed gears, right?
No, they've had geared bikes before. I've worked with them and done some reviews on my channel for them. This is the first like gravel or cross bike with gears. They had two single speed cross bikes. I reviewed their Warhawk before. So as far as I know, this is the first geared like gravel bike. Essentially, they've had mountain bikes in the past for a very short period of time. They have two different versions of a road bike, one aluminum like racy and one more commuter based, like one by I think it's 8 or 10.
Let's go down to chipper, right?
Yeah. So it's like a more classic looking.
Okay.
but this is the biggest foray into this market, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think the most intriguing thing is this.
Yeah.
Yeah, look
Easily,
at that
yeah.
number.
Enhance.
I know.
Yeah.
And again, like we're talking about these bikes today, and none of this is sponsored content. That's why you don't see paid promotion on the bottom here. It's just because we're interested in it. And yeah, I'm attracted to this one too because of the price. It seems like a fairly well spec package for the money. And I think one thing that's interesting is
State Bikes in the house.
Okay,
they are in here.
Nice.
So this is not sponsored, guys, but hey, they're here.
Right. Hello.
Yeah, but I think one thing that's cool is they offer the opportunity to buy 2 wheel sets. So something like more expensive brands do, like Thesis, you can have that on a more affordable kind of platform. So we were talking about this bike earlier, and I think one thing that you pointed out, Mike, was that it's got 4 adventure mounts, 4 adventure nipples on each leg.
I don't know what we're gonna call that. Like quad packing. State. I think States, maybe they're looking for our marketing terms. I don't know, but I think this is going to give you, in my opinion, and Russ, you're more rack experienced than I am. I think this is going to give you like every single front rack, mid pack, shoulder option, as well as you're going to be able to place things lower on the bike, which I really like, because there's sometimes with my dry bags on the side, sometimes they sit a little high, as far as like turning, lock to lock, things like that. So I think this is going to clear up that. Also, if you're running non-water bottles and doing like an Nalgene bottle or something else, having taller. Something taller, a lower option is killer. You can see they're having the fender mounts. It's got the front, what it looks like in that picture, the front, fork mount. So I think as far as like options go, especially in this price point, I think it's got the most fork options, and it's through axle. I think that totally blows everybody out of the water. That's purely true. Based on that, because I don't think anybody has as many fork mounts or even has 3-pack mounts at this price point. Through axle, I don't think anybody has currently.
Not yet.
They're competing with Marin for the most adventure nipples on the bike.
Sure. But even what about the Marin that you tested? I think it was like a tan,
the Nicos,
like a yellow,
the Nicasio Plus. Yeah, no, I don't think
quick
it
release, isn't it?
Yeah, that was quick release.
Yeah.
So
I think the through axle is a huge bonus. Like,
for sure. Yeah, as far as just speccing wheels for future, or anything, I think that's a killer thing.
Okay, so what else do we have here? One thing I like about this is you can run the 3-pack mounts. You can also use. Have you seen those problem solvers bow ties? Or like ultra minimal.
I want to try those.
Those are awesome. Like, so if you carry like tubular things or like growler type things, you could strap it in there. I can also see using a Portura rack and 3-pack mounts, because then you'd have a place to attach the stay, but still have mounts on the bottom.
I'd be interested, Russ, for you to do like a mini pannier and a front rack.
Yeah, like
2 separate systems instead of like the one all integrated.
Right.
Because I don't know if that would work on that system, but it looks like it could.
It could. I mean, I'm hopeful for this. Again, I like the placement of the fender and potential rack mount in the back. What else we got? We got double eyelets in the rear. Attachment point here up on the seat stay. So in terms of utility, a lot of options. Looks like it's one by, and there was some discussion about the group set. So this is kind of a State branded one, but you said that it might, or it's potentially the Sensa.
It looks like the Sensa 1x11 that I've seen. But I think how they've spec'd it and how they offer it, because they offer it as a Grupo for a killer deal at $350 to offer the shifters, the crankset, cassette, rotors, and mechanical brake like calipers, I think is awesome. From what I've read, because I haven't personally tested that group set, I believe the capacity is a lot larger than the 1142 they're speccing. So for somebody who wants an even wider range, depending on where they're taking the spike and what the terrain is like. Yeah, so Slate just commented, developed with Sensa. Yeah, the crank isn't Sensa, and the brakes aren't either. That looked about right. The nice thing is it's threaded bottom bracket as well. They're using a standard, looks like a 110 BCD chain ring, so you can get a wide range of options from State directly or obviously aftermarket. But that's so. Oh, all right. Well, they're commenting a lot in that, so I'm keeping an eye on the chat. So they said the 50 was no good. So all right. Well, then there you go. But that's something that I think that for this price point, like I said, I think they're offering a lot for it. The ship's logic is SRAM, which I like because I'm a SRAM guy. So like I like the double tap, which I know they kind of go off of.
Yeah, for me, I'd like to see lower than 1-to-1. Especially if you're gonna go bike packing
and I believe,
in mountainous terrain.
I believe State's selling a 38 as a small ring option. If you look at it, so I think you can get from a 38 to a 42 or 44. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's something like that. So you can get a lot smaller front ring.
Yeah, I mean, if I could get like a 46 in the rear and a 38 in the front, to me that covers a lot of the bases and reasonable top speed. You're not going to be sprinting at the end, but
for the pro athletes that we are,
right, yeah. So yeah, interesting bike. I think I might have one en route to review, so that should be fun to check out. Anything else about this bike that jumps out to you guys?
I like the geometries, like gravel geometry. It's a little more slack. It's a little more stack, than most. So it's going to be more comfortable for those long days. Being fully steel, it's going to ride really well.
It's got flared drops as well, does it not?
Flared drops.
It's certainly hitting all the right spots, right? Like everything that you kind of want out of it.
I think as a whole package, very impressive. Like shockingly impressive especially with for me, it's like the through axles, you can order both wheel sets. And I think the tire spec they put on both, if you were gonna, let's say this is your first foray or like you're getting into this genre, I think having like a 700 with a 38 slick and a 650 with the Gravel King SKs and a 48, I think that's a perfect dynamic for like, you can do kind of road, light gravel, and some more gnarly, and easily swap your wheels and kind of get the whole gamut of it. And they have a very diverse bike for, I think it's an additional $350 for both
the wheels,
tires. So like I think that's killer for like
wheels, tires, and cassette and brake rudders.
That's killer. Like
awesome.
right over $1,000 to like have the dual personality bike is awesome. I think they've have a slam dunk as far as like spec wise. The future proofness of the through axle is great, and it's not, it's a standard through axle width of the 100 and 142 in the rear. It's flat mount, which everything basically is now. So I think they spec'd it just right. And with all the extra mounts on the fork, like I said, make it very versatile for the bike packer.
I'll be excited
that are out there.
I'll be excited to see if they do a version like they kind of did for like the fixed gear bikes, where they're like, okay, does this work? People seem to really be enjoying it. There's a lot of beginner people into it who aren't really paying attention to geometry too much. So we just kind of have to cater to that because people don't know what comfort is yet. So you can see that the head tube is quite long, but all my head does is scream out like, I want like a racier version. And like they did that with like the fixed gear, like crit race bike. And they did that with
the undefeated
one of their road bikes. Right. So I think there's potential there for State as a company to also appeal to someone like me who isn't going to buy probably the next bike we talk about, but will certainly be looking, at maybe the price point that their other the higher end bikes are.
Right. And I think at the 25, 26 on average weight for this price point with that capability, and again the the foresight of, again, the flat mount, the through axles, and everything else, and the 1x with a decent range on it, and the clearance it offers, I think it's shooting above its weight class as far as like price point goes.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, it's here's the weight down here, so it's quoting around 25, 26 pounds. That's par with Surly, but considerably less.
Right.
In terms of geo, it's a long rear 450. The Ritchie I just tested was 453, so I can already kind of anticipate how this is going to ride. I think I calculated the trail with the head tube angle and the different tire size, and both in 700 and 650B, the trail was upper 60s, so not quite 70. So definitely a little bit more relaxed handling in the front than the pure road bike. So I think this, in terms of geo and potential handling, again, just guessing from the chart, it seems like it fits the bill pretty well. It's got a pretty steepish seat tube angle, which I actually prefer. 74.5.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's sweet.
So
see, now they just need to lower the head tube length and
just to a -17 or 21 stem. It's fine.
No,
it's all good.
I don't like the look.
Good.
I don't like the look of tall head tubes.
But it can be slammed. I can't do that. Yeah,
I'm very vain. For me to sit here and say that that's the one thing that I am not crazy about.
State Bike can come out with like the slam spin dat stem, top cap.
The slam dat.
It's a thin veneer cover, and it's just right above the bearing, right into the bearing, and the stem sits like in the head tube,
I don't want to run the bearing cap. Just
yeah, it's right on there.
Yeah, I can't ride this in the rain anymore, but it's sick on Instagram.
Right. All right, so that is the State All Road. I believe they've just started shipping. I don't know, I forget when the press release dropped, but this week.
I think it was yesterday.
Was it yesterday? Okay.
Pretty typical for our show.
Yeah, that's why we do these on this day. It's so it gives us the industry time to release things. So since we have State in the chat, if you guys have any questions, feel free to interact with them. We totally did not invite them. This, that's why you don't see paid promotion.
As a matter of fact, we didn't even want them here.
Don't sleep. Oh yeah. Oh wow. Look, they released yesterday, so we were right. 50% are gone already. Yeah.
Oh no.
All right. Well, hey, good for you guys.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think,
it's great.
I think at the end we can address any stuff if anybody wants to mention it to us or wants to ask them. Obviously, ask them in the meantime. But yeah, no, I think that's awesome. I think it really did hit well.
Yeah, for sure. Well, State, the other 50% is going to sell out during this show, guaranteed.
No big deal.
Welcome.
No big deal.
So we're at the 23-minute mark, and that's when YouTube tells me that I should do a call to action and say, hey, if you haven't subscribed to ACN already and you like this content, you probably should. Again, this is going to be the last time I'm going to be doing a dual stream from Path Less Pedaled and ACN. So next week, this show is going to be exclusively on the Alternative Cycling Network channel. So I see that State's going to bounce. So thanks, folks from State Bicycle,
for joining in.
Yeah. And what do you guys think about this bike? Let us know in the chat. I know that our channel is not necessarily focused on budget, but we do touch on that price point. It seems like a bike that a lot of our audience would be into, right?
I think so.
Yeah. I think so.
Totally.
I think we'd all love to give our thoughts on it because I think it hits different points for everybody.
Yeah. I know when the press release came out, I got half a dozen messages on Instagram and on the Discord. They're like, "Oh, look at this bike." It's like, I know it exists. Cool. Well, the next bike we were going to talk about does not cost.
It's way different than that.
Yes.
The handlebars cost that much. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you see what that guy is holding in his hands? That's the entire cost of
that's the State bike right there. Actually.
Okay, so the next bike is the 3T Exploro Race. Are we talking about the Race Max, or what's going on here?
So from what I've understood, and again, not sponsored, so our facts are, our own. So what I believe they've done is they split the bike into the Race and the Race Max. So they consider the Race as a bike for the gravel racer or the roadie that's gravel curious, who is basically really focused on, still wants that road position with a little more tire clearance, and wants the most effective, fastest, most efficient package as far as wheel tire combo. So I believe that bike maxes and is spec'd with roughly a 700 by 40 or 45 C tire. The Race Max is, I don't know if the geometry is different or not. I believe it's a little taller stack for more endurance geometry, but the big thing difference is it's supposed to be spec'd up to, I believe, a 2.1 to 2.4 tire width, depending on your rim combo.
So is that like the 61 millimeters that like Jay Powell would have been talking about? Yeah. Right,
exactly. So that's basically what they call I kind of like the term, to be honest, is the 3T is calling it the maximizer. So that's somebody who's looking for the most rugged way, or like easiest way to get up whatever. And they said, and their term was somebody who doesn't want to walk up anything. That's what their term was. And I was like, this is, and like coming from like an Italian guy who's like telling you this, like he's like, I can't do the accent, but like he basically just said like somebody who wants a tire that they know no matter what they're going to encounter, they will not have to walk up. So that was where the Race Max kind of essentially goes into that open wide category because of the same designer. But the 3T is the more aero version. I'm assuming the geometry is a little more racy between the two.
Well, it sounds so. I'm reading the copy now. It sounds like they're the same bike, and Race is, depending on how the Race and Max is depending on how you set it up, and Race Max is just their cutesy name for saying you can do both.
But I think the tire clearance is different between the two. I could be wrong, but I think there is a difference between the max tire clearance between both bikes.
Right. And in let's go. We'll jump back into the geometry and kind of the minutia of the frame. But let's talk about this concept that they introduced as well, and that is the RAM and the WAM. So RAM is radius as measured, and WAM is width as measured. And this is pretty cool that they did this, because I know that on my channel I always get questions of, how wide is the tire really? And I hesitate to give an answer because it depends so much on the rim, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
So they've here, supposedly they've compiled, a database of a lot of different popular tires and have plotted them against different internal widths to get the RAM and the WAM measurement.
And George Michael's also going to be here.
That'll eventually get cooler to say. We're not sure, but
it's never going to get cooler to say. We
were
talking earlier.
What's the WAM on that setup you got though? Like,
See, I would have done the diameter as measured. Just for that. It sounds more.
Yeah.
That's a huge ass dam. Rather than
that's a huge ass dam. That WAM is ridiculous.
Like it is a cool thing to bring up. Like, who was that guy that did like the handlebar like database where it was like, I don't know if I want these bars or not because I don't know if they'll be the right shape in comparison to like
what bars
did that?
Yeah, what bars?
Yeah. And it's
I see Rubber. I'm going to shout out Rubber Lover here. If you guys haven't checked out Rubber Lover. But he's doing something similar in terms of having a database for tires and categorizing them.
Yeah, I saw. No, the logo I remember because I saw the database. It looked great. No, but I think that's, and also like Russ said, like all you kids who are watching that are under 18, like you can't search that term without your parental guidance like controls on.
I think it's rubberlover.cc or something.
Yeah. But no, I think this is a cool metric. I think this is really where it's going to go, because right now with the convergence of like so many road and mountain wheel set combos, it's so different. Like I know for me, I have some 50Cs on a slightly narrower rim bed 700, And WTB always measures very true for me, but I ran them on a wheel. I was like, they're a little narrow, but like it can't be that big of a difference. They're 47s at max PSI, and at realistic pressure, they're 45s, which is hugely different, you know. And then for the opposite end, my 650s that are running my industry 9s, it plumps my 2.2 to like a 2.25 ish, and that's real close. Like that's beyond max tire clearance, so it does affect it. So I think this is a really cool thing, and for anybody listening, watching, whatever, supposedly 3T is supposed to like export this as a chart for all of us on popular tires with their rim combinations. So if you know your internal rim width and the tire that you're running, you should be able to look for the realistic diameter or radius, so that if you're buying a frame and you know, hey, my combo actually measures a 45, okay, well, maybe you can go up a size, or you need to go down a size, you know, vice versa. So I think that's an awesome thing that should be, I hate to say like another bike standard, but like it's kind of important with how weird things are now.
Yeah, I dig it.
Yeah,
you know, it's so hard, you know, especially for doing some kind of conversion from an old 700C bike to 650B, and just you don't know if it's actually going to fit. Having those two measurements, you can measure off of you know, where the dropout or where the axle would be, and get a sense of, you know, this tire is actually going to, this wheel and tire combo is actually going to work. I watched the 3T explainer vid, and I thought that one thing that was interesting was, you know, they're talking about their ultra wide rims that are coming out. So these are rims with an internal width of 29, but have an external width of something like 40. And that's to take away that bulb
thick
shape.
boys.
So it's so it's totally flat, and you know, the air disturbance, you know, science happens. But that's pretty bonkers. You know, to finally have kind of a rotor style rim that, you know, acknowledges, okay, these wider tires, and, you know, kind of build a profile shape that best kind of maximizes their potential.
I mostly just like the fact that it's wide enough that even to think about running such low pressures, and to like rim strike everywhere, you're like, I have 5 mils of sidewall on each side. Nothing bad is going to happen. Like
I think that's
I don't even
really
care
where
about the arrow. I'm like, oh yeah, nothing's going to break.
Yeah. No, I think that's the real big thing is if for people who haven't run wider internal rim width rims, you can, like, a couple mil of internal rim width can literally drop your pressure 5 to 10 psi.
It's bonkers,
and it'll feel the same. So if you like this certain tire feel, you know, the tire's not going to feel squidgy. It's not going to feel like it's loose underneath you, or it's getting away from you, or folding. It's going to be just as stiff. And if you look at the car industry, you know, that's why these guys stretch tires and get these wide rims and these narrow tires to pull the tires out. So you get that stiff sidewall so that it handles better at the limit. Granted, we're running low pressure, but it's the same kind of thing. So I think that is going to start trending more. And I think between tire pressure and rim width combo, or internal rim width combo, I think is really going to dictate. The industry needs to say, like, hey, this is kind of, here's our 50C. But if you're running a 21, it's a 47. If you're running a 25, it's a 50. And if you're running a 28, it's a 53. I think that's a very easy measurement for tire, especially at these big sizes for gravel. I think that's a very easy thing that they could do, to give you a more realistic aspect, because in my experience, the diameter rubbing like on the frame isn't an issue. It's always the width.
Correct. I agree.
Yeah, I have to say I'm almost more excited about I don't know,
the WAM and RAM.
Yeah, because I can't afford the actual bike.
But I can look at this cart
and get value from the chart, but the bike I will never touch.
The chart is free. The $4,000 frame set is not.
Right. Yeah. So speaking of the frame set, you know, one of the big selling points about this one is all the aerodynamics. In their explainer video, I actually liked how he framed how they designed the bike around the tires. They thought of the tires first, and then the placement of the water bottles, and then constructed a bike around it rather than tires and wheels being an afterthought. So you can tell it influences their design with this kind of here in particular they talk about having a big flat profile to kind of hide the water bottle from the wind. I don't think I ride fast enough to take full advantage of that.
Yeah.
Hey, we all are basically. We're amateurs at best. Yeah.
Right.
No, but I think the smart thing when you watch it is you see the wheels, and then they're like, you know what? No one's gonna gravel race without full sets of water. That was cool. And so that was where they truncated that tubing to shield 2 water bottles. That was really interesting to me. Because it's like, what's the functional aero? That's why I always tell people like, well, your bike can be X amount of pounds, but when you add your bottle cages, your pedals, like your computer mount, whatever, like that's the real weight of the bike, especially with water in it. Like that's what you're really dealing with.
Yeah, whatever you're actually riding. That's
And so I like that they actually built the aero around like functionally, like, yes, you're going to have 2 water bottles on this bike, like that's awesome because realistically everybody's probably going to,
Right. Let's see what else you got. So this is probably my one kind of, I don't quite dig this part. I mean, depending on the wheel and tire combo, if you look at a really tight profile shot, there looks like there's hardly any room. So I can totally anticipate if you're doing an event or a race and it gets super muddy like this year's Mid-South, that this is just gonna chunk up and abrade the crap out of your frame. For the sake of aerodynamics. So I mean, I can see if you're riding and it's dry and dusty, then you're probably good to go. But these clearances in the rear seem pretty tight.
I almost feel like that's almost the clearance of pushing as big of a tire as you can.
I mean, look at that. That just
it is small.
You could get if you got a pebble stuck in there, it would bring you to a screeching halt.
Oh, and the sound would not.
No,
be good.
you would just do one really good skid. Like that's it. Like,
But like I'm sure you can. I don't know. I love the way this bike looks, so I feel I want to defend it. But like,
no, I mean that's the thing. If you knew you're gonna run muddy, like you would run a size down on the tire.
Maybe try and go smaller. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what people with this kind of money think like. So
Squarespace, we want to know what that's like. Yeah.
All right. So what else we got here? So narrow head tube. That's one thing that they talked about is it's got a really slim profile so that again air goes around.
Yeah, but the top cap is or the top bearing is 1 1/4, not 1 1/8.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then 1 1/2 on the bottom, but it does not look that way at all.
And yeah, so they did a lot of interesting, like engineering wise, like I'm super in love with this. Like it totally makes sense. The fact that they went with a really like thin crown race to effectively shorten the axle to crown ratio, genius. Like, and that aspect of it, as far as like for handling, completely makes sense. This isn't a bike packing bike, so there's no bike packing mounts on there, so you can engineer the stiffness and the aero and everything else into it because you're not carrying load.
Right, it's got no quad nipples up in the front.
True.
Yeah, but what is that? What is that? A fender?
That's a fender mount.
Bolt?
What?
Yes, it's a riv nut. It's basically a riv nut.
Okay, so that's a little silly because if you remember the clearance spec up here, what fender is going to fit there other than like some imaginary one?
Yeah.
It's
I mean, the thing is designed to be a fender.
Alternative Cycling is going to be sending free fender mounts for these bikes. It's called Hope and a Prayer. That's what we're going to be sending. Yeah, we're going to be making those ourselves. Yeah, I have no idea what that's going to actually clear.
That's weird.
So you see like all this flat space. I mean, we were talking about this earlier, like anticipating that mud buildup and bringing the frame. This is where I think they could do something innovative and have like a gravel guard. So some kind of really thin alloy piece that's designed to be chewed up, and then you can remove it because it's inevitably going to get chewed up if you ride in
or even
in nice-
even just a ABS plastic, bolt-in whatever. I mean, I run 3M clear tape on all my bike for the high impact areas, but I mean, something. That's the tuck I get. But I mean, if you look at any modern mountain bikes, like even half the down tube is like underneath it is like an
These
ABS
big
plastic
rubber
like guard.
things. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm surprised
and I mean-
that hasn't trickled more into gravel bikes.
I can't help but feel like it eventually will. I mean, Shimano does it with all their front derailleurs because they're not able to design something that won't rub at all times. Anyway, it's a consumable part. So
Yeah.
I'd
So
prefer a rubber consumable part than a consumable frame. That's $4,000.
Right. So double drop chainstays.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it way better than the asymmetrical look. I think we'll look back at asymmetric like drop chainstays, and like it'll certainly be a novelty of like, oh yeah, I remember when like we couldn't go the whole way out of commitment issues. Like
two was just too crazy. We had to do one chainstay at a time.
Baby steps.
So they've got threaded BB. Is that right?
Yeah, which I like. No, actually, no.
it looks very okay. Yeah.
Is it?
It looks like it threads into itself and it's press fit.
Okay.
Yeah, it's press fit. Yeah.
Comes with thread. What a bunch of liars. They're like, oh yeah, it's threaded.
Okay, so
threads
here
on
goes here goes our 3T sponsor we'll ever have in our
So direct mount rear brake. Again, they love their integrated fender mounts. They're like, honest, you can put fenders on there, I swear.
You just try it. Trust us.
Right. Self-aligning wedge clamp. Okay, so you have to run a proprietary seat post, right? There's not like a wet.
It's a D shape. Yeah, it's a D shape.
Yeah.
But they use Ritchie guts for the seat clamp.
Have you ever dealt with one of those like seat clamps before, Mike? I know you definitely have, but like
with my TCX. Yeah,
have you gotta Russ, like ever?
So what you do is when you get it, you got it, and you want to like loosen it. You have your saddle in there, right? And you loosen it as much as you can with like your tool, and then you just like smack it as hard as you can, just like break it loose, and then you just like you sit on the rear wheel and you just like do this for like 10 minutes, and then it comes loose.
Right.
Yeah.
And then
it's very easy.
Totally something I want to do with like a $3,000 frame.
Yeah.
And then
we can do that on the live stream. No
like
big
if
deal.
you pull the seat post out and the bike's oriented in the wrong way, sometimes that wedge
the seat
just
clamp
falls
comes
into the seat
the bike.
tube,
Yeah.
and you're like,
Oh, jeez.
Worst. The worst. The worst. I've done that more than once.
worst news ever.
Yeah.
All right,
Cool,
so
I'm
let's jump
pulling
into the
cranks out now.
Geo here. I read somewhere, I think it was on Road CC, that this bike actually has two different fork rakes depending on frame size.
Correct. Yeah.
So
For fork,
I believe
or, toe overlap.
I think so. The larger frames would have the 54 rake, and the smaller frames would have the 60. I forget what it was, like 60 something.
Right.
I did a trail calculation, and it looks like both of them, assuming, both of them are going to land the trail in about 60. So it's definitely like right in the middle of like a road bike or endurance road trail number in the front.
I would expect that for
What's the reach and the stack on the 54? I just can't see it in the preview we have.
Reach and the stack on the 54. Reach is 377. Stack is 564.
That's a long top tube for a 54.
Yeah, but I think they're designing it around a short stem. I mean, most gravel is.
Okay.
They're going a little longer. Reach wise, that's about right. Stack wise, it's a little more racy than some.
It's got a pretty low bottom bracket. I mean, the BB drop is almost 80.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting. CT angle fairly steep. Super tucked rear end at 415. So it's
that's where the cutout comes in.
Yeah. So it's basically a road bike.
I like that.
That's the thing is they call it the gravel curious or the gravel racer.
Right.
But like I would take this, like I would take it everywhere I try and go mountain biking. I'd be like, all right, let's go.
Sure. Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
be like super happy with how it looks all the time. Like there's nothing I wish more than it like something like this geometry and even a quarter of the looks wise could trickle down into like the realm of my possibilities of like actually
2030 is gonna be great for a spin.
yeah, and it's like, but like I think I think there's it does a real disservice to say that every lower cost or entry level bike needs to be endurance entry level geometry. Like
Right.
I think it's a real bummer that like that bike is wildly sophisticated. There's a lot of work put into it, and it's easy for me to make fun of it because I'm not going to get to ride one. But like, I want to ride something like that. I want to own something like that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what were the price points again?
I want to say it was a little over $3,000 for the frame set, right?
Yeah. So 3,200 for the frame set. You could get a rideable build at 4,200 GRX, 1x, and it goes all the way up to 6,400 with Axis, 1x.
Okay. So here's wait, is that Axis wide or the mullet?
Axis wide.
Okay.
Yeah.
That 6,400.
That it sounds. I mean, it's a lot, but like you look at the Diverge that we talked about because you've been watching this since like the beginning. It's like 10 grand. Granted, it was the Eagle, but still like $4,000 difference.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'd be more tempted to spend my disposable income on something like this than I would anything from the Big S. I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, both in terms of just like aesthetics. I think both of the colorways are pretty dope.
And they also still offer the like frame set in a like basically raw carbon version if you want to paint yourself, or they offer a paint service as well.
3T does?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think it's called the Ready to Paint program.
Wow.
And so I could be getting the name wrong, but it's something like that where they either offer you, like I said, you can buy it if you want to paint it yourself, or have a painter do it, or you can have them do it, and they offer, I'm assuming, like a handful of schemes.
I want to
what they cost.
I want to meet the person who's like, I'm buying this for the paint it myself.
Yes, yes.
I also have spray dot bike on the way to the house, along with.
I'm sponsored by Rust-Oleum at Home Depot. It's killer. You should see their paint colors for 2020. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like that's
Okay, so YouTube chat. What do you guys think of this bike or the State bike? Or if you guys have any questions, let us know. And again, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. It gives it view velocity, and we can make that sweet YouTube money.
And make sure to subscribe to Alternative Cycling, because this is not going to happen on Pathless Pedal anymore.
Yeah, this is the last time we're going to be streaming from Pathless Pedaled. So you'll have, if you like this video, you'll have to watch it on the new channel. But it'll also come out.
Yeah, if you forget, we'll probably make something that remind you. Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah, so I've been taking these videos, stripping the audio, trying to do some level adjustments, and putting them up as a podcast. I mean, it is on our Pathless Pedaled podcast, but we've been getting lots of requests to have it as just audio only, because they don't like watching our faces, or something.
I mean, that's a given. That's a very big given.
I think that's like half the value.
Yeah, it's true. Well, now we have screen share, so now like we've upped it a little bit, so we're maybe
we got a countdown timer. I can show you guys my iPad.
You're gonna want to be here for this,
right? So if you guys have any questions, leave those in the comments. Give it a thumbs up, all that good stuff. Let's see. Anything good here that you guys want to highlight? So waiting for Alternative Cycling shirt.
Oh, I know. All right.
Let's talk merch.
Right,
should we do merch?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, what kind of merch do you guys want to see? Do you guys want to like? I'd love to do shirts, but logistically, they're a little bit of a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Unless we do print on demand. I think stickers might be a more kind of short-term attainable piece
Yeah, I
of
think
merch.
stickers and like Teespring would be like the worst.
Yeah.
But the quality is not going to be as good as like ordering it ourselves.
All right, we got Dawn. Dawn wants some stickers and shirts. We can
She
make
also
that
said
happen.
She also said she likes our faces. So
There you go. Yay!
can we get like the 3 YouTube faces that we have like on a T-shirt? Like,
Oh no.
that's what we need. That'll be like a limited run. Like we'll make like 3 of them, and then like that's it.
Right. There you go. Adventure
Adventure
nipple
nipples.
ACN shirt.
Oh.
We should just have like,
There's
it
just
should
2
be like a
bolts.
line drawing of a fork.
That'd be so good. It'd be so good.
Nice.
I like it.
Which is
cycling
almost kind
caps
of
would be-
like a sin because you guys know so much more about like hardware going onto bikes for carrying bags, and you guys are talking about it. I'm like, camera's on me.
But again, 2020, like 2030, like you'll get it. Like it's fine. Like
Yeah. So flippy flappy skin suits. I don't quite know how that would work. But maybe a skin suit that looks like a flannel and jorts.
or
It's like
or
its own
just
one piece.
like
It's so
mechanics coveralls in jersey material.
there you go.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, so I don't know, of the 2 bikes, the State definitely more attainable. I think there's value in both. That's kind of, you know, as I've ridden more bikes, I can appreciate the really super engineered, very expensive bikes, but also I think the warm and fuzzy spot, maybe because those are the bikes I can afford, are the more affordable ones.
I agree.
I think that the engineering and the foresight for both is very cool. I think that 3T as essentially Cervelo, because that's like the designer that started them and Open, them recognizing that this aero race bike needs to hit all demands from the riders, I think is cool.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. State bike, same kind of thing. It's just like, well, no, is their tire clearance as progressive? No, but hitting all basically fork mounts you could want. Price
2
point
wheel
that's-
sets.
2 wheel sets
Yeah,
from
that is
stock. Like
wild.
again,
Yeah.
buy $1,000 bike. Like I said, like for instance, like my go-to $1,000 bike for anybody who asked me was the Giant Revolt. But this $1,000 with 2 wheel sets, granted it's a lot heavier, but 2 wheel sets, one by wider gear range, that's a tough argument to have, you know, without actual like practical experience for all of us, you know.
Again, not a paid promotion. Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool. You get kind of that champagne experience, but with the Budweiser budget. You know, have
It's
the,
like, it's like oh, what is it? No, it's the Coors Light banquet of bikes. I think that's the color they actually in the other one, the tan color. That looks like Coors Light banquet to me. But yeah,
nice. So any other questions in the YouTube chat? Let's see. Someone wants a ACN hoodie. Yes, with just all adventure nipples up and down the sleeves. Let's see.
we had some good ones in the beginning, like kind of when we started. So we might want to kind of scroll back and go through.
Go.
We get time.
Yeah. What else has caught your guys' eye?
I still really want to try that Suntour fork that we talked about last week.
The gravel
Like,
fork.
I wrote some stuff like the other day. I'm like, this would probably be nice. Especially, honestly, when I saw the State bike with a straight steer tube, I'm like, you know what? That's the bike. That would be killer.
Yeah.
Granted, you lose the mounts, but kind of makes sense.
I don't use mounts, so
Yeah, see?
Yeah.
There you go.
it'd be an issue.
How do you carry things?
My
Right.
pockets.
Yeah.
You just have cargo pants?
Yes.
ACN face masks.
Let's see. So I'm assuming this is a comment about the
Yeah, I
about
agree.
the 3T.
I agree
Yeah,
with that.
yeah.
As a
If you look
crossfit
at the
is same, yeah.
if you look at the Niner Magic Carpet Ride, they did the Niner thing that they do for their mountain bikes is they have like literally like a rubber flap in the back just to protect like mud getting to like where the suspension is. Yeah, I could totally see that packing up.
Now, I will say at Nationals this year, there was a guy racing on a 3T Exploro, but with 33s on it, there was a pile of room. So like mud was not an issue. And he was a monster. Like he was winning Masters. He won all 3 races he was in. Like it was hard to make fun of him for anything other than the fact that he was racing cross on basically a road bike. So that's all I yelled at him. I was like, "That's a road bike. You're going really fast."
Yeah, but he saves like 0.3 watts on every lap because he's aero.
He's aero, yeah.
Like,
so what are your guys' thoughts on longer chainstays versus shorter chainstays on the gravel bike? Do you guys have preferences? I mean, the 3T is clearly the tucked one.
Yes. I don't know that I would necessarily need to go quite that short.
right.
But I don't like obviously long looking chainstays.
Yeah.
But I would bet that I would notice how it rides, because I've always known that I like shorter chainstays from BMX because the bike's always lifted up easier when you didn't have that extra like inch and a half. So like that's where my love for like really short chainstays kind of came from, where I was like, well, I know what that feeling is supposed to be like. So
right.
Yeah, I think it depends on the tire size you're going with. So I think that's really where, if you have no idea, it's very different. It's a very difficult decision to make. But if you kind of know what you want or what you think is going to be good for your scenario, your terrain, wherever you live, you know, if I'm going to max at a certain tire size and I can tuck, that into a bike, it's going to handle a little better no matter what. If you have no idea, or you're going to be traveling, or just like, I want to ride whatever, longer is going to give you potentially, depending on the frame design, more options. So I think that's really where it lies. Like compared to my TCX to the Cobalt that I've built, like my Monster Gravel build, it has a slightly longer wheelbase, slightly longer chainstays, slightly bigger clearance. I really like it because that's kind of what I've been riding more of. Now, is it a cross bike? No, like my TCX handled way better for the tight stuff. And that's the capability I gave away. But if this is what I'm riding 10 months out of the year, kind of willing to make that sacrifice,
So here's one thing I've observed, like testing a bunch of bikes. To me, when the bike has a short chainstay, like, sub 430, so 425 and shorter, when you stand and climb, it's easier to throw the bike around and destabilize it. And the longer it gets, like, even if you're in the same gear, it just has like this slightly slower cadence. And I think for me, like, if that's that's usually how, like, if you gave me 2 bikes and didn't tell me the chainstay length, I'd try to do standing climb, and I could kind of tell, like, okay, is it less than 430 or more than 430? Because my brain will like pick that out. Typically I've liked the shorter chainstays, but after riding the Ritchie and kind of actually analyzing how I ride, I tend to climb mostly seated these days. I'm starting to prefer that, especially on the descent, because I descend way faster and more confidently with the longer chainstay in the back.
I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to make sense any day of the week. I think for me, it's the turn in. I'm the opposite. Like, I'm coming down like a kind of steep, rugged kind of descent, and I want to hook it right. Do I feel confident enough to like lean it hard, which is again relying kind of on the tire, or do I have to take this really wide line because the whole wheelbase of the bike has to like come around it, I think that's where I feel it the most, is in like immediate direction changes. My buddy Mario, who's in the chat, he's got a midnight special, and we were riding the other day, and there was a rattlesnake in the trail, and we didn't see it, and literally thought he was going to run over it, and literally, like, he was in front of me. I literally thought the thing was going to, like, bite him in the ankle because he was so close, and it, like, curled up and, like, rattled and, like, whatever. And he, like, somehow snuck out of it, and I had to, like, hook it harder than he did.
Okay, right.
Wheelbase, like,
Yeah.
but that's really where I think for me it's direction change and line choice. I think does change with wheelbase, trail, and everything.
So it's a little bit more deliberate the longer the bike gets. Like,
Yeah,
you gotta
I think
counter steer
it's
it more.
foresight. Yeah, it's foresight.
Yeah.
I think with like what you're talking about, where you can everything is shorter and more nimble, you can react later,
Right.
and hit the line that you want. Where if you don't have that, you have to kind of anticipate it.
Sure. So here's a question. Not that one. Define gravel. So when you guys hear the word gravel, like what pops in your head?
Like the spike.
Which
guess.
bike is that?
Right, it's the Poseidon. I guess just like a bigger tire bike.
I think she means like in terms of terrain. When you hear gravel, like
okay.
But they could be tire too. You get to go on encompassing. We're not limiting.
Yeah.
I think like any road that you wouldn't want to drive your car fast on because it makes you uncomfortable.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like even like a cottage road. Do you guys have cottages where you're from? Do you know what a cottage is?
It sounds so quaint. I don't think we.
Yeah, I think
it's like dirt roads.
It's called an Airbnb.
By like beaches. Anyway, we have those.
Is that like a bed and breakfast?
Well, some of them are. But like like it's like that would be like the beginnings, I think. Like, or like rural like farming roads would be like a really good spot to like start to be kind of curious about it, and that you wouldn't want to ride your road bike on it.
Right. Or what we can call the other cycling channel might call it hero gravel.
Yeah, I guess that'd be like fast, like really fast gravel riding, wouldn't it be? Like like I think some people would even consider would be naive to enough to call the routes that like Paris-Roubaix is done on as like a gravel ride, but that is that's a road race. It's just
right.
I don't know.
Yeah, for me, I think gravel is anything that you think you need an over like a 35C tire.
Mm-hmm.
I think anything under that. I think the only thing with the state bike I also didn't mention because I didn't think about it till I like saw the name. We were doing all this together. I don't know why it just didn't hit till later. All road. Yes, all encompassing. To me, the problem with that is that nomenclature in the market right now. An all-road bike is something that goes from a 28 to a 35 now, which I think is a new thing. Like I've mentioned before, a gravel steel build. Essentially, that's an all-road bike now. Because when I built it, that was gravel. Now it's an all-road. You look at the new Giant Defy. It's an endurance bike. Clears a 35C tire. Trek has the Domani. I think it clears a 32 or a 35. So I think all road is anything sub 35, which is going to give you either more comfort for a longer distance, because I think that's a very important thing, and give you some capability depending on, again, what roads or what gravel you have. If it's pretty fine and nothing super chunky and not like rust your baby heads, which I think is it's an interesting term.
You guys don't use that term? Is that just like
I don't have to think about like baby heads like when I'm riding my bike.
Really?
It makes me super uncomfortable.
That's like a Pacific Northwest.
I don't even have kids, and that's uncomfortable.
What do you call them? What do you call like the baby head size rocks?
Oh my god!
Big rocks.
Big rocks.
See, big rock, I think like this, but
no,
something
that's a boulder.
That's called a boulder, or it's called mountain biking, Russ. Like that's what it's called.
I will call them cantaloupe rocks from now on.
Next week when we take a poll on what should you call your gravel size rocks.
Right.
No, but I mean that's realistically for me. It's I think anything that you don't need bigger than a 35, I think is an all road, meaning that it's like dust, dirt, debris, mild gravel. Anything over that, I think you're going potentially more extreme. And you might want to get out there a little more. And that's where the bigger tire combos and different tread patterns really come into their own, because you can get a WTB byway in a 44. You can also get a 34 or whatever the smaller tires do. So very different tire, very different grip levels and everything else. So it really depends on what you need,
Yeah. So here's all Apple Rocks. I'd call them Apple Rocks, but they are closer to a baby's head. So that's
Stop that. Stop it.
Jesus. Okay, so everyone in the comment, please comment below this video if you're watching it. What is a similar size object that's not a baby head that is the size of a baby head? All parents that are watching this, please use the hashtag.
See, I read Brian's comment, and I thought he was just talking about like Apple, the company. And he's like Apple Rocks, and I was like, what does that have to do with this? Anyway,
it seems like other people use that phrase. Anyways, so for me, gravel is essentially it's unpaved. That's the first kind of trait, but generally is largely a road or was a road. So that's where I think in my head, like all road makes sense in terms of describing the terrain. Like I think once you start to include like single track, it's a different thing.
I agree.
Although you can ride gravel on that, but I think in terms of when I think of the surfaces here, there's farm roads, there's Forest Service roads, there's old logging roads, there's decommissioned roads, and they're largely unpaved, but they also were previously roads. Serve,
or they might even have a name, like they might be on a map.
They're numbered. So,
Mr. Potato Heads, I like that.
Not big enough.
I feel like I feel like baby heads are smaller than Mr. Potato Heads. I don't know. I don't have kids. I don't know. That sounds about right to me. I don't know.
Well, I'm thinking like around 2-year-old size is.
Oh well, okay.
That's not a baby.
Yeah, come on, Russ. What is their naming structure? This is not a baby. That's an infant head. I don't know.
Okay, I will use infant head.
I don't like that either. Don't.
I know exactly. Like, there's no win, Russ, in your naming structure.
Don't like it.
Damn it.
All right, so looks like we're off the rails. Should we wrap it up?
No, I don't think so. Toddler rocks. Oh Jesus.
I don't know if that's better.
Oh my God, none of it's good. Oh.
It's good.
Well, okay. Well, if you guys think about what you would rename it, and whoever
we'll put that
comes
on a
up with
t-shirt
it
next week. Yeah.
We'll put it on a t-shirt, and you can buy it. Infant head is definitely worse. I'd agree.
Yeah.
I'd agree. So what do you call them in Canada? You just rocks, big rocks.
Rocks. Like when you get a flat on it, you go, well, that big fucking rock back there gave me a flat.
But that doesn't do anything to denote the size, though. That's
because you're there, you show it to them. You go that one.
You go pick it up. You say, "Hey,
this one." Things like the size of a baby's head.
You said after, Russ, not on video.
I remember once when we were living in Oregon, we were part of this group that was trying to map out some gravel routes in the state of Oregon, and we had people from OBRA, so the local racing group, a couple of bike advocates, different bike packing groups and gravel event things, and about 2/3 of every meeting was how to describe gravel. So people were like, should it be class 1, class 2, class 3, or should it be defined by tire size? You need at least a 28.
Child head is the gravel.
And it dawned on me, it's just like the saying, like there's a million, and not exactly a million, but many words for the word snow in different languages. So I feel like for cyclists, gravel for one person could mean something completely different to another person. Midwest gravel as opposed to stuff in the Pacific Northwest or down in Southern California or up in Canada. I don't know. You guys have gravel there, right?
Yeah, well, as long as it's not covered in snow, yeah.
Dinosaur litter. I like that. The gravel chef. That's
Right.
pretty fun.
Let's see. Child chunks.
No,
Child chunks
why does it all have to be
God.
kid related? Stop. It's not good.
We're gonna have a whole series on this. Oh, look! Like he took his hat off. Like what? Come on.
Oh.
Yeah, here we go. Just go with fruit sizing. So
Oh, there we go. Okay,
grapefruit gravel. Okay.
Let's make the standard. There's wham bam, thank you, ma'am, and now there's
Right.
fruit gravel. Okay, like that's what we're talking about. Are we talking
So you
like
got apple rocks, grapefruit gravel,
melon? It's like that's like
Melon.
mild boulders, right?
or
Getting there,
cabbage.
certainly get-
I guess,
Cabbage,
although
cabbage bowl. Okay,
that's a vegetable. It's not fruit.
okay.
Grape
Are we having to
size.
stick with fruit?
Grape size. That's just
Yeah.
loose gravel at that point.
Grape size gravel is your 32 to 35
Yeah.
C. Yeah,
Raisin
that's fine.
rocks.
Yep. Wait, is this organic gravel? Is this
Right, I know.
non-GMO gravel? Are we?
It's
What are
free.
we?
It's free trade. Free trade.
That's free trade gravel. Okay, good. It's a whole different structure for that.
Yeah. Okay.
Tomato
cabbage
rocks,
gravel.
cabbage gravel. That's it.
Okay, I think we're off the rails for sure. So
All
let's
right,
take it
well,
home.
Here we go.
All right.
Free
So
range
thanks,
gravel. Sorry.
thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Unfiltered, unbiased bike news, and also helping you name your size gravel where you live. So if you guys like this content, like, share, subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and be sure to watch it next week exclusively on the Alternative Cycling Network. Link in the description below. And until next time, everyone, keep this upside down.